Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. My name is Chris. I'm one of your hosts, and as always, I am joined by Jim and Alberto. How's it going, guys?
I'm good.
Doing quite all right.
Awesome. It's been quite the eventful weekend for us, at least for us down here in Texas. Alberto, why don't you talk a little bit about what we had going on?
Oh, we had the mighty Oak himself fly his giant self down here and come hang out for the weekend, and it was full of barbecue and gym sessions and cookouts and me burning a meal and good times had all around.
It wasn't that burned, number one. Number two, it was delicious regardless of the fact that it was a little crispy on the outside. And so, yeah, there's no issues with that. And so... yeah, it was quite eventful. There was also a little bit of drinking that went on, thanks to some gifts that the Mighty Oaks brought down with him. I might be sipping on a little bit of my gift tonight. And so it was great. Lots and lots of barbecue. We took him out to a cruise barbecue in Lockhart, Texas, which was excellent. And then we tried a couple other local places here in the Austin area. And then, of course, Alberto's Carnitas, which was amazing, even though it was a little extra, deep fried. That's okay, though. That's okay. Okay, so, Jim, how about you? What's been going on for your Labor Day weekend?
I lived vicariously through you guys. I just watched from afar and enjoy the scenery from southern Indiana down to Texas and the shenanigans. And I am a little disappointed that I put in the request for you to take a dry erase board. So every barbecue joint that you went to, you wrote the Keto Men's Club was here or something like that. But maybe that we can have that happen at some point down the line. But otherwise, life is just ongoing and good. It's the favorite time of year for me. It's the Burr month, so starting to enjoy some cooler weather and no complaints at all.
Well, this week's episode is a little bit different than normal, so we're going to dive right into the shout-outs real quick and whatnot. But before we do, let's go ahead and recap a couple different things, a couple different ways that our listeners can get in contact with us. And just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe on whatever platform you subscribe on. We don't want you to miss an episode because some of these stories that are being shared by our guests are just absolutely phenomenal, and you do not want to miss out on them. So please subscribe, and if you get the chance to share the word, leave a review. All that stuff helps to make sure that the word gets spread about the Keto Man's Club podcast. So that more people can hear the good news about keto as a man. I don't know. That sounds a little evangelistic, but I'm going with it. Okay, so ways that
all the people said amen.
Yes. So ways to connect with us are basically all outlined at theketomansclub.com. You can go straight to that website. You'll see a link for our Facebook page, for our podcast, and to all of our socials, including our own Instagram for the podcast, which is Keto Man's Club Podcast. So check out theketomansclub.com. We kind of reworked that a little bit, and so now that is kind of a hub that you can get access to everything Keto Man's Club related. So that's all I'll say about that for now. So let's get into our shout-outs. Jim, how about we start with you?
Well, I want to shout out to a gentleman who's been a part of our group for quite a while. And as we were talking before we started the recording, I don't know that we've ever given him some shout outs. Now, this gentleman, his name is Carl, and Carl K. And it's not just the initial, but his last name is K. He is one of those people that You can tell by his posts and his wording and the photos and everything. He's one of those people that you want to meet at an airport bar or restaurant and get to know and become buddies with, because he's living his best life, I think. He just turned 56 a couple of weeks or so back. He posts these wonderful photos from across the globe. He's had a career with, he's a former CEO and founder of a company, and just kind of one of those remarkable people. He's a cancer survivor. He's gone through all kinds of things personally. And you just, like I said, he's one of those people that I would love to meet and get to know more about. So my shout out is to Carl K for just being a consistent, level-headed, sound member of our group and always being honest and encouraging to our guys.
He's absolutely that. He's absolutely that. I see the posts that he posts, and there's the commercial with the world's most interesting man, and I think we need to dub Carl the Keto Man's Club most interesting man.
Yes, fine with that.
And he actually did spawn the hashtag be like. Well, he didn't. In his honor, the hashtag got be like Carl got spawned.
I love it. Okay, Alberto, how about yours?
Well, mine's very interesting this week, and I'm gonna give out his full name. This young man, because he's younger than I am, was actually a fellow ulcerative colitis warrior, and I met him actually online, as I meet most people, in one of the support groups, and we got to chatting. And he used keto in the past, and it helped him out, but he kind of fell off and gained a bunch of weight, and he was trying to get back into the military, so. We went back and forth, and I bounced around a bunch of ideas. He had some very, very big goals to get to in order to get to re-enlist again, and he was able to shed a ridiculous amount of weight in a very short amount of time, pass his physical, re-enlist in the military, and my good friend Brad Osborne just posted today with a beautiful picture of him and his wife that he made it through basic, and he's off to whatever's next for him, which I think he said was like some kind of chemical something or other training. But yeah, I mean, if you would have seen what this guy went through in order just to quite literally make the cut, like I was even warning him. I'm like, look, you do what you got to do, but the way you're approaching it is extreme, but you need extreme to do what you are trying to accomplish. And the man stuck to it, lost the weight, got in good enough shape to achieve his goal, and now he's reaping the benefits. So way to go, Brad.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Agreed. There was a lot of conversation before he went to basic on things that he could do to enhance his work and get the most out of it, and he obviously did it. So that's really pretty cool. So my shout-out's a little bit different this week. Walt Lucas posted a link to a news article, and this event is just so ridiculously awesome that I just had to talk about it. So we'll have a little discussion about this. The title of the news article from CNN.com. So it's not like The Onion. This is not satire, people. This is supposedly, at least as far as you can trust CNN, real life. And so, teenage boy goes blind after existing on Pringles and French fries, and apparently. The way that this is spelled out is that he was eating a diet completely of French fries and Pringles and white bread almost exclusively for a long period of time, and he showed up at the doctor's office at 14 complaining of tiredness. I wonder why.
Shocker.
And then continued to move on. His BMI, well, actually, he says he wasn't taking any medication, had normal BMI, which, just kind of reinforces that the body mass index is kind of BS, and height, and showed no visible signs of malnutrition. So he didn't look malnourished, but all he was eating was Pringles, chips, and fries. And they discovered very low B12 levels and anemia, treated the patient with that. offered some dietary advice. 1 year later,
eat a sandwich, please.
Yes, please, a
Right.
sandwich, anything.
There's nothing in the article that mentions that he's allergic to meat or anything like that. Is
there's
there, Chris?
nothing. No,
I mean,
I'm not
this kid
seeing
just
any.
basically said, "I'm
No.
just going to live off tubes of Pringles
Exactly.
indefinitely." Okay.
That's pretty much exactly what I'm reading here. So he started showing signs of hearing loss and vision symptoms, but the doctors did not find the cause. Lord, his vision had worsened to the point of blindness by 17 years of age, and the doctors identified B12 deficiency, low copper and selenium levels, and high zinc levels, reduced vitamin D levels. It just goes on and on. Essentially, he got diabetes. He had blindness due to nutritional optic neuropathy, and it's all because he just ate starches and carbs, and that was it. And it's ridiculous, and nobody should do that. Nobody. Eat real food, people.
And let's not neglect that, like, he ate arguably the worst variety of starches and carbs.
Right.
It's not like the guy was trying to just live off potatoes and rice. No, he went completely the other direction.
No, it was potatoes, supposedly. Was just highly highly processed potatoes, in bad oils and all of that stuff. It just, hopefully everyone who's listening to this podcast knows the value of real food. But this just underlines all the more that, we really need real food. It's not a want. It's not just a nice thing to do to be a little more healthy. We absolutely need real food in our diets. And so, hopefully nobody listening to this has that issue. But if you do, hopefully this will encourage, light a little bit of a fire under your butt to get after it and really and seriously eat real food.
Real quick, where was this family located?
Let's see here. Let's see if
does
the
it say in the article? I'm just curious.
Florida.
Bristol Medical Center. So I'm thinking this is in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
not Florida.
Yeah, not Florida. The King's College London was critical of the case reports. Yeah, this is definitely happening in the UK sphere of things, at least. From
this guy needs to be like Carl.
Yes, this guy definitely needs to be like Carl.
Yes, good call.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that wasn't a bummer for anyone, but I hope it's an encouragement. I really do. With all of that said, let's go ahead and talk about what today's episode is. I had the pleasure to get to sit down with one of the... He wouldn't consider himself a big name, but he's one of the guys that got me started on keto, and at least in the understanding of keto. And it was Carl Franklin from the 2KetoDudes. He's still doing the podcast. He's doing it now with Carrie Brown, who is a good friend of mine, and who she said she reached out to me via text message a couple weeks ago, said, "You need to have Carl on the show," and I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." That's what you say to Carrie Brown when she tells you need to do something. Yes, ma'am. So we had him in, and because we couldn't get all three of us on the line, it was kind of a solo interview, and whatnot. And so we're gonna roll that interview right now, and then we'll come back to the three of us, and we'll kind of talk about our impressions of it. It was a really enjoyable conversation, so I hope that you enjoy it. As the listeners, and then we'll be right back. Okay, well, here we are virtually with Carl Franklin. This is my second time getting to do a solo one-on-one interview with someone, but I'm this time it's remotely, and that's okay. That's fine. We got I'm excited to get to do this because our guest Carl Franklin today, he's one of the guys that kind of helped me get started with keto. I found the 2KetoDudes podcast pretty early on, and it's been a great resource for me, both as a beginner, but also to understand the science as that matured. And so I'm I'm looking forward to and excited to get to know Carl a little bit deeper, because that's what we wanted to have him on for. It's not just to talk about podcasts. So, Carl, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you on.
I'm happy to be here, Chris. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and talk about Carl, because that's where we like to start. The keto journey is a journey, and so it always starts somewhere. Where did Carl start?
Carl started with a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes after being overweight for much of his adult life. I was a fast food junkie and didn't take care of myself and ate like I used to eat, before I went to college. And actually, when I went to college the first time, they talk about the freshman 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine was like the freshman 40 that never went away. And then a few years later, I quit smoking and gained like 50 more, 60 more, and just that never went away. And just, struggled with it a long time. I mean, this is going to sound familiar, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people like me out there that just struggled with weight their whole life. Of course, later I learned that, the reasons why. And when I learned about insulin and all the science in there. And, I did Atkins in the 90s, like most people,
mm-hmm.
and had success like most people. And then people started scaring me. Doctors would tell me I was going to destroy my kidneys and like all these, I'm going to have a heart attack because of all the fat that I was eating, and a lot of finger wagging.
Mm-hmm.
And the science really wasn't out until, Eric Westman, went to Atkins and did the science. But so anyway, my highest, I was like 379, I think I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lost weight, and this is before keto.
Yeah,
I was doing keto. I'm 5'10".
Okay, so
I was doing keto, but I didn't. What?
So you're about my height is what I was saying.
Yeah. So I'm 5'10", 377 pounds. I knew that the low carb diet worked before, so I just dug into it. I didn't know I was doing keto, but of course I was. I was, eating really fatty meats and stuff, and just trying to eat one meal a day and maybe a little bit at night, but not much. And I lost some serious weight, and then of course you plateau and you don't know why, and you get frustrated and say, screw it, I'm going to eat what I want,
mm-hmm.
and weight comes back on. And I went back up to 366 after getting down to like 320, I believe I was at 318.
Mm-hmm.
And went back up. And then that's when I got the diabetes diagnosis in June 2015. And then a friend of mine, Mark Miller, got prostate cancer. And he saw the research by Dom DiAgostino and Thomas Seyfried, that the combination of a ketogenic diet and exogenous ketones and hyperbaric oxygen chamber was the most effective at extending the life of mice that were given cancer. So he did all three of those, and he did it for cancer. He's not overweight.
Mm-hmm.
He had stage 4 prostate cancer, and he refused chemotherapy and radiation. He also refused surgery that would have left him impotent.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically went under the knife, and they got it all out, and he's been cancer-free ever since. And that was in I can't remember when the surgery was, but he got diagnosed in November 2015. So at that point, he said, hey, I'm doing this, and my wife, Karen, who's also a friend of mine, is doing it too. She's doing it for weight loss and all this. So, and I said, you know what? I got diabetes. I'm in. If you guys are in, I'll do it with you. And I knew I had to lean in hard, but of course I was still afraid. And Mark Miller's boss at one time was Richard Morris.
Okay.
And So I was friends with Richard Morris on Facebook, and a couple of years before I had seen Richard sort of flaunting his success at reversing diabetes and losing weight. And Richard is, you know who he is. I mean, how he is. He's so research-minded. He's so science-minded. He's a software guy like me. And he did all the research, finally figured out that what we've been told is all wrong. And he said, I had success in spite of doing exactly the opposite of what the Australian Diabetes Association told me to do.
Yeah.
When he followed their advice, he became sicker and more diabetic. And they told him, like everybody else knows, it's a progressive disease and, you know, you'll never get better. We're going to medicate you so that your HbA1c never goes below 7, which is diabetes, right? So the standard of care is diabetes, and you live with it, right? And by the way, go ahead and have that bagel with, you know, whatever. So, you know, when I leaned into it and Richard shared all the great research and I just devoured it. And I was like, you know what? This is pretty compelling and convincing. I'm not going to be afraid of this anymore. And I did it. My doctor, who had never seen anybody do what I did, she had no idea what was going on. She's like, she went from, my God, you're falling apart, to, you are a rock star. Look at you. I can't believe this. I've never seen this before. And she said, however, your cholesterol is through the roof. You know, sit down. You're going to stroke out at any minute. She was completely panicked. And I said, well, can you show me any evidence that says, you know, any science that says that elevated levels of LDL are a marker for heart disease or a precursor to heart disease or cause heart disease or even associated with heart disease? And she said, no. I said, well, then if we don't know that for sure, then why don't we measure heart disease? How can we do that? How can you not look for imaginary markers or unknown possible markers, but what are real markers of heart disease? And she said, well, we have people that are fine and then they stroke out, and we come in, we do a carotid artery scan, and they have plaquing. So I could order a carotid artery ultrasound for you. Great. Let's do it. Yeah. Guess what?
Nothing.
Came back clean as a whistle. And then she was like, okay, I'm convinced. And she wasn't convinced, however. She was still afraid. And, you know, I had sort of plateaued out at that point anyway. So she was then more focused on the weight than on all of my health markers that I've completely improved. And one of the things I told her was, how is it possible that all of these health markers improve except for this one, and you can't even provide any evidence that it means anything? Oh, and by the way, check out these studies that show the opposite. So after that, I sort of changed my doctor because she wouldn't read anything, and she was still afraid of it, even though she didn't have any scientific leg to stand on.
Yeah, there's a lot of us that have had to fire our doctors. I lucked out. The primary doctor that I end up going to, he's actually a PA with my urologist office who administrates my testosterone replacement. He is totally on board. He's just, you do whatever you need to do. If keto is what works for you, that's awesome. I do it. He does it cyclically. Like, he'll just do it every now and again, lose some weight and gain some back, lose some weight and gain some back. But but he sees the results that I've seen, and he's like, dude, just do it. You're doing great. Keep it up.
Yeah.
And so I lucked out, but not all the doctors out there are that way. What did you find surprising along the way? Did you have to struggle with anything in particular along the way, or did it kind of, once you went keto and once you dug in, was it easy, or was it, was there lingering things?
I mean, the easiest thing was, I get to buy new kitchen gadgets and consider it medical equipment. That was my justification, because I considered food to be medicine, and I still do to this day. And therefore, you'll spend $150 a week on medication that comes out of your pocket, even though you're paying insurance. But you won't spend $50 on an Instapot or a pressure cooker, right? Or $100 on a sous vide precision cooker stick, you know. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to just eat the most delicious, hyper palatable keto food I could possibly make. And that's where I focused my attention, just on making really good food. And yeah, it was easy. It was, and I, you know, you go about it and you just lose the hunger and all of the things that I didn't realize how badly, I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt good.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I had fallen off the horse a couple of times and it was painful. It was literally like I couldn't walk. You know, I had pain and I lived with this every day and I just didn't care. I didn't realize how bad I felt. But I tell you what, though, it's a journey. And I was always into measuring my blood glucose in response to food. And, you know, I had enjoyed this solid low blood sugar for a while. And after about a month, I think I found myself at Taco Bell at 3 o'clock in the morning, drive through, whatever. And the next day I looked at my glucose and it shot up high. And then I went right back on the horse, right? I went right back to bacon and eggs. And I noticed that it took a long time to come down to 100. A long, long time. Like it took 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's surprising, you asked me, is that here we are 3 years later, you know, more than 3 years later.
Yeah.
And I fell off the wagon. This is just a few weeks ago. I decided to have a carby meal.
Sure.
And I looked at my glucose and it spiked really high. It spiked like to 200 something.
Okay.
And then in 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, it was back down to 120. And by the end of the day, it was at 100 again. So that tells me that I was insulin resistant because it takes more insulin to get the glucose into the cells, right? And it takes longer to come down. Insulin has to stay higher longer.
Yeah.
But now I'm insulin sensitive. My insulin works. Okay. It made me fatter.
Sure.
But it got the sugar out of my blood.
Yeah.
Quickly. It works. And, you know, I noticed that my wife, when she is not keto, but, you know, she likes to watch her blood sugar anyway. And she'll have like a glass of orange juice and it'll spike up and an hour later it's down.
Yeah.
That's insulin sensitivity.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised that, you know, after doing keto for so long, you know, you can change your insulin sensitivity and make it better.
Yeah.
It's just great.
That's a sign of metabolic healing. You always, Richard, I think, I'm not sure I'm sure he didn't coin it, but he uses the term metabolically deranged. And I latched onto that early on. I'm going, my metabolism is just not healthy. It's like mentally deranged, only it's metabolically deranged. And
that's right.
I like that way of looking at it because it puts that different spin on it, makes it a little easier to understand the importance of having it be healthy. And your example of you know, the very slow drop versus the faster response, that's a really cool observation. That's not something I've heard described in other places, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk at least from you know, high level biomarkers then versus now. What was your A1C before? What is it now?
Oh, okay.
Things like that.
It was 7.4 at its highest. So unlike Richard and a few of our other friends who were up in the 10s and 11s, I never got that bad. But yeah, it was 7.4. And who knows, it could have been higher. But when I measured it, you know, when the doctor measured it and gave me the diagnosis, that's what it was. And now it's under 5. So I'm my blood sugar is like 70 to 80 most of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I haven't checked my other markers since I went to Dr. Barry, but they were all great. Yeah, and I am the LDL hyperresponder. My HDL is high, and my LDL is also high. Last time I checked, my trigs were about 130, I think. I can't remember exactly, but so yeah, my HDL to trig ratio is pretty good.
Yeah,
and I just feel great. So.
Yeah. Well,
there's
feeling great is always the one of the best markers to go off of. My doctor that I go to for my testosterone, he's that's one of the things. He's just like, how do you feel? Okay, right. It doesn't matter what the numbers say, as the numbers are a good measuring stick to kind of say. But if your numbers are great, but you don't feel good, then they're not right for you.
I did a fast with my wife once, and she lasted 4 days. And she felt okay, but she was a lot more hungry than I was, of course, because she's not keto. Sure. She went through that adaptation pretty quickly. But her blood sugar got down to 60, and her ketones were over 7 at one point. And I said to Dr. Barry, who's my doctor, Dr. Ken Barry, should I be concerned? And he said, how does she feel? She feels fine. I mean, she's hungry, but she feels fine. He says, then don't worry about it. That's not ketoacidosis. That's just high ketones. And the reason they're probably higher than, mine would be, and mine were, 2 or 3 when I was fasting, is that she's producing more ketones, but not taking them up so fast because her body doesn't really know yet what to do with them at that volume.
Yeah,
so
it's not keto adapted.
Body's still looking for glucose.
Yeah, the cells aren't looking for the use of the ketones, and that makes sense. And that's why a lot of people will see a spike in their ketone levels once they finally get into eating keto, but then eventually they see it drop, and then they're chasing this high number.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And it's like, no, don't worry about it. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people are moving to a breath ketone measurement like the ketonics instead of a blood ketone, because blood ketones that's like fuel in the tank versus what you're using. The air that the ketonics is able to measure at least a little more closely what you're using versus because it's the remainder of the byproduct of how much you've converted.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you're either in ketosis or you're not. You know, and if you're in ketosis, your body's using ketones, and if you're not, your body's using glucose. It's not completely a binary switch in my mind, but if I'm 0.5, I'm happy. I 0.5 no glucose, no sugar, great. I'm using ketones. So, and I know I am because I'm not falling over dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So you were on insulin at one point in time?
Never.
So you didn't get on that train, which is good. Are you on any other drugs or were you on any other drugs and then come off?
Well, when I first got diagnosed, she gave me metformin and a statin.
Okay.
And like a good sheep, I took them.
Okay.
Metformin, I probably could stand to take. I know that's really safe, but at one point, after starting keto, I just stopped taking them. She wasn't happy about that, but she couldn't argue with the results. So,
sure,
yeah. And so I never had any other medication, but I just do remember she was treating me as if, has it happened yet? Has it happened yet? Like, she's waiting for me to develop more symptoms. Sure. Like, she asked me if I had any tingling in my toes.
Yeah.
Like, she was just waiting for the next prescription to give me. Do you know what I mean? And that's what doctors do that don't understand the biochemistry of what's happening in your body when you eat carbohydrates.
Yeah. Well, there's a big conversation amongst the keto community about the fact that doctors really, they are treated to diagnose issues and apply a medicine to that issue. They really aren't
treating symptoms.
They're not treating symptoms, or they're treating symptoms, not root cause. And so, I do tech support for a living. You're a programmer, so you think this way too. We think from an engineering standpoint. Whenever I get an issue, from a customer that's on my phone, what I'm looking at with them is going, okay, what is the actual root cause for your computer not to work the way that it does? That it's supposed to. And so, we both think systematically. You and Richard are probably even more uber engineering because you're programmers, so it's a little bit different.
But you're mindset. A diagnostician. Exactly. That's your trade.
Exactly. And so I always look at things from a root cause. And so for me, when I heard about insulin sensitivity versus sensitivity and insulin resistance and all of the the logistics of that part of the engineering system in my body, I'm like, wait, that's why I'm fat. It just made sense. It just made sense.
Well, think about it from a doctor's perspective. Mm-hmm. They don't know what causes all of these things. And for us to have figured out that the standard American diet is the cause of obesity is unheard of. Like to have such an easy intervention, and it is an easy intervention, let's face it. It really is. It's just food, right? Mm-hmm. It's just unheard of. So they're not used to knowing what root causes of these diseases are. Mm-hmm. They don't know. Yeah. And they don't want to know. That's not their job. Their job is just to look. So they don't have a test case for this, how to react when somebody figures out, how to stop the disease. They don't know that because they've never seen it, because who knows? I just want to treat your symptoms, right? Yeah. And they're also used to having people who are overweight and, diabetic and telling them eat better and exercise more. And they don't do it. Mm-mm. So now they're used to patients not following their lifestyle advice. So why bother? Mm-hmm. From their perspective, there is no cure. There is no thing that they have any control of that their patients can do. Their patients won't follow it anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think I used to be mad at doctors, and I can't blame them because they don't have this frame of reference. But at the same time, it's up to us to educate our doctors and try to convince them to take us seriously and say, look, if you're not going to do research and, read the science and look at the outcomes, at least read the Verta study, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're not willing to do that, I'm going to another doctor. And I won't recommend you to anybody who asks me if I know a doctor. Mm-hmm. You got to do that. And I learned that from the hard way. And, Ken Berry, his book is all about that. It's about change your doctor or change your doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have the book. It's in my backpack, and I have yet to be able to actually sit down and read it the way that I would like to. And so one of these days, I'm gonna fix that. I probably am just gonna get the audio version of it because that's going to help out a lot. Our friend Jimmy Moore was the one that was nice enough to record that, I believe, and so I am looking forward to digging into that and hearing it. It's probably all stuff that I know by this point, but it will be nice to actually hear it or read it fully. So, have you been caught off guard or surprised by anything along the way on your journey, whether it be a physical ability or something like that?
Yeah. Well, there's a story that I'll tell. When my wife and I were dating, she used to be the one who was always 5 steps ahead of me, and I was winded, and I'd be like, slow down, I don't walk that fast, right? And then, after, I think it was 6 months after or whatever, when I was in, peak condition relative to now and then, sure. Right? We were walking, and there was a hill we were going up, and I said, I'll meet you at the top of the hill. And I just boom. Not winded, just I was at the bottom of the hill, then I was at the top of the hill, then I turned around and she was still at the bottom of the hill. And I wasn't even winded. It was just amazing. Getting the sensation like I just have to get up and move. I want to run up the stairs. It feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Running upstairs feels good. And I'm like, who am I? You know?
Yep.
That surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yep. I've had similar moments whenever I'm in the gym weightlifting and going, wait, I enjoy this.
Yeah, this is fun.
When did that
Feels
happen?
good.
When did this happen?
Yeah.
So, you know, you're a musician in a fairly successful local band up there in New England, the Franklin Brothers band, and I really enjoy your stuff. I'm thankful.
Thanks.
I'm thankful that you guys have stuff on YouTube because I can't make it to New England anytime soon. I'm going to try to get to KetoFest next year. I'm going to try. I can't make any promises, but I'm going to try. But you know, have you seen any side effects in that regard? I know I've noticed a couple things, like my stamina for playing acoustic, as rhythmic as and moving as that can be. Sometimes I found whenever I was at my heaviest that my stamina just wasn't there, and now I've got all the stamina. What have you noticed?
I'll tell you what I've noticed. So before I went keto and in the band, my fingers would cramp up and they'd lock, like especially my ring finger on my left hand. So I'm playing bar chords a lot. You know, we don't do capo stuff. Like we play in key that the song is in. Sometimes it's in, you know, well, needless to say, I'm playing a lot of bar chords all night.
Yeah.
And so my finger would cramp up. Towards the end of the night, sometimes I couldn't play the last song. And I'd have to like take my left hand off my guitar and sort of shake it and try to relax it so that I could finish the song. And then after the night is over, now this is a 10-piece band and we have a lot of gear.
Yeah, like, you do.
Everybody has microphones and stands, and we have headphone extension cables because we do in-ear monitoring. So there's a lot of breakdown.
Sure.
And I'm just wiped. Like I have to sit down. I would have to sit down, and I couldn't do it. I went and set up. Like I did a lot of setup, so I didn't feel guilty about not, you know, doing so much. But I would essentially just get a chair, plunk it down in the middle of the stage, and just bend over and pick up cables and wrap them. Like I couldn't do it standing up at the end of the night. And then, you know, now we stay after at the bar or whatever, have a drink, and now it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I got to load the stuff into the car, take it to the studio, and pull it out and bring it. You know, I'm just completely tapped.
Yeah.
At this point. Now, fast forward to post keto, and especially fasting. I found that if I fasted before a gig, I could hit the notes better, higher, hold them longer, never cramped, and at the end of the night, I'm energized.
Yeah.
I can do whatever. I go, you know, I have no problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a definite performance benefit physically. And, you know, you could say it's the weight. Like, yes, I dropped a lot of weight, but I mean, that's just being tired and run down. That just didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I notice with me having a day job and doing podcasts and video editing and trying to burn the candle all around, not just at both ends. As long as I get a day or two of rest every now and again, I just can keep going and going and going at times. Right. And, you know, I'll get up and, you know, go to the day job and do my 10 hours, and I still have energy. I can still do stuff. And you know, like you, I've noticed that my stamina playing, you know, guitar or keyboard, you know, I got plenty of stamina for that. I do find that my vocal range is a little bit better, more consistent. You know, there's these little things that have changed that I am coming away going, okay, didn't really expect that. And so it's been nice.
Right.
It's been nice. So as we start to wind down, because I know you have things going on and I don't want to take too much of your time, let's talk really quickly about what your experience has been, or from your perspective, having started 2KetoDudes, the podcast, and what that has resulted in for you, because that's been a great resource for a lot of people. But from your perspective, what's that been like?
Well, we started it as a commitment device for me to stick me to the diet, right? Which was great because, and not only that, but I wanted to share my success with people, and I wanted to document the process, warts and all. There was no holding back. There was no coloring the truth. It was, this is what happened this week, and here's some more research, right?
Yeah.
So it was great. And, having a friend like Richard who's so good at, finding the science and discovering what's not really science. And then, of course, talking to all these brilliant people. I can't believe the people that I've met and talked to. The culmination of it was this summer at KetoFest. Stephen Finney was in my house eating my food and having a great time.
Yep.
Just blew me away. I was like, I can't believe it pinched me.
Yeah.
We talked to Tim Noakes, but just the, celebrity factor aside, these people are so smart. Like Zoe Harcombe.
Yeah.
She is just amazing. And her job is to pick apart science when it comes out and say, this is why we can't take this study seriously. And there's only a few things you have to look for, but she knows them and she shares them. And I learned a lot by talking to Zoe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So getting to talk with the brilliant people has been amazing. I know I get to work and interact with Danny Vega and Keto Savage, Robert Sykes. So on a regular basis now, because I work for them, work with them, and it's great to be able to be a part of all of that. And they're geniuses in their own right from a different perspective. And so it's been really awesome to do that. And it's not about celebrities, because honestly, they don't act like celebrities. They're just regular guys. But they definitely are dedicated to their work. So one of the other things that you created at some point in time, or had a hand in, was the Ketogenic Forum, and
yes,
and all of that. That's been a great resource. What's been your takeaway from that? What's been your favorite? Do you have any favorite stories or anything like that?
Well, the story of the forum creation itself is kind of fun. We started on Facebook. We had a private Facebook group. And it got very popular very fast. We had like 14,000 members. But the problem was, we would post things and or people would post things and we would comment, check out, somebody would ask like, a question that can be answered by some science. And Richard would post a link to science or whatever we would post, and with a big explanation. And he would take a lot of time and a lot of care to answer the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, people would comment, thank you, Richard, and somebody else would comment. And then, a couple days later, after his answer had rolled off the screen, people were like, yeah, +1, I want to know this too. And all they had to do was see the previous messages, scroll up, and read the answer. But Facebook isn't set up like that.
No.
And if you're not one of the people who are lucky enough to see the comment that answered the question, it might as well not exist. We got to the point where we suspected that searching the Facebook group wasn't yielding the search results. So Richard tested it by writing a post that had this very technical term in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was some amino acid or some technical thing.
Yeah.
And then he tried searching for it. Nothing. And a few days later, he tried searching for that exact phrase. Nothing. And we just came to this conclusion that this is ridiculous. We're constantly answering the same questions over and over again.
Yeah.
And then people are just mean. to each other, or they were in our Facebook group.
Yeah.
I know people that do a much better job of, policing and other stuff, but it felt like whack-a-mole to us. We were just like, that's not what I signed up for. We want a community. We want people to be good and excellent to each other. We don't want this, name calling, and then we got trolls coming in, and it's like, screw this, man. We got to find a solution. So I'm friends with Jeff Atwood, who is a programmer who started StackOverflow.com.
Okay.
And StackOverflow.com is a website that software people can use to ask questions of a technical nature and get answers. And they wrote, I think it was Joel Spolsky, wrote this engine, this forum engine, and they put in all of this great stuff, like flagging questions that have already been answered, nominating an answer to be the top answer, so it's searchable. Sometimes people will ask questions that have already been asked before, and so the software notices that and says, hey, before you post this, check out these, or do any of these answer your question?
Yeah.
So there's all this great stuff, and then there's also the idea that you can get status by answering questions, so it sort of gamifies.
System. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really well done system. So they have this open source version of it, of Stack Overflow, of the engine, and you can just use it for free, and you can host it yourself, or they also have this hosted version where, you pay them and they host it. So Jeff gave us a really good deal on a hosted version because we really didn't feel like we wanted to, manage it, at least in the beginning. And we got started, and we basically gave our Facebook group a Viking funeral. We had this big picture of a Viking ship sailing off on fire, and we're shutting it down. We gave people plenty of notice. This is where we want you to go. We're starting this new forum. It's not a 2KetoDudes forum. It's a ketogenic forum, and it's for the community, right? It's not our community. It's your community.
Yeah.
And it just worked. There are some constraints, like you have to actually read posts and look and search for an hour or two or 45 minutes or something like that before you can post. So that basically gets rid of trolls.
I really like
so
that.
Nobody's going to just go in there, see a post that they found in, linked in Google, and then come in and, crap all over it and leave, which is what they would do on Facebook.
Yeah.
So that it gets rid of trolls. So then, you get, the more you use it and the more, you post and you participate in the community, people can flag posts that they think are spammy. And then we had we basically got a group of our friends to act as admins that patrol it. And we have a Slack back channel for them, so they can discuss, what about this post? Is this spam? Is it help? Basically our definition of spam is, somebody who's pushing exogenous ketones or pushing a product without really helping or without being a part of the community. They just come in and post links to products.
Yeah.
But then again, if the products are going to help people, it's kind of a call. We just like people to participate in the community rather than just post links.
Sure.
So it's been great. And last time I checked, we had, 40,000 people in the forum.
Yeah.
I could check right now, actually. Cool. Then our good friend Nick Mailer took over hosting of it.
Okay.
And that was a little bit of a transition. We had some funding to expand our reach, and the Ketogenic Forums came out of that funding, paying for it.
Sure.
And that's when we did the Obesity Code podcast, and we got a couple other podcasts going. We really started expanding. And then, that ended, and we started a Patreon, and that was barely paying for the forums, and we needed to get somebody doing social media. So basically Nick stepped in and took it on. And thanks to Nick Mailer, it's up and running and humming smooth as pie.
Yeah. Nick's quite the character.
He's great.
Yeah, he brings the comedy to the science, and it's really really awesome to
It's wicked smart too.
Yes, and that's where the
Ridiculously
humor
smart.
comes from. That is absolutely where the humor comes from. It's
Absolutely.
So
let me give you some numbers
Okay,
here.
yes, please.
You were asking me about users.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Dashboard. I'm looking here. Discourse is the name of the software.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Users per trust level 22,000 plus 13,000 plus so about 35,000 people.
That's a lot of people, and it's a great resource for every single one of them.
Yep.
So we will have links to all of this in the show notes for our listeners to make sure that they can find and get into the Ketogenic Forums as well, because it really is. It's an excellent resource for people of any level. You have for the newbies, there is a newbie section, and so that's a really great place to go to get quick answers to those questions that you have early on your keto journey, and then you can dig into the deeper, more scientific, nerdy stuff there as well, because it's all there, and that's really cool. So let's switch gears again real quickly and talk about KetoFest. You've had 2 very successful years of KetoFest. It was bigger and better this year. Oh, 3. I'm sorry. I totally got my...
Yeah, we just did the 3rd one in July.
That's right. I had my years wrong on that. It's crazy to think that I've been kind of doing this for long enough that it would be 3 years. But 3 very successful years, and it keeps getting bigger and better. One of the awesome things that you have done consistently with it is that you pretty much crowdfund it for the most part, right?
We did the first 2 years, and this year the Kickstarter didn't take. We didn't make our goal.
Okay.
But then we were kind of left with this. We almost made the goal, and we had to decide whether we were going to do it or not, But we figured if we just start selling tickets anyway, and we get all of the people who pledged on Kickstarter to buy tickets, that we'd get pretty close.
Yeah.
And we did. We were able to fund it.
Cool.
I won't say we made any money. We didn't. We lost a little bit of money, actually.
Sure.
But it was worth it. It was the best KetoFest yet, this last one. Everybody said so.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of logistical issues. One was it was absolutely searing heat on Social Saturday. Mm-hmm. That was Saturday in July. It was the hottest day of the year.
Okay. And
we were afraid that people were going to pass out, but you know what? These are keto people. They're strong. Mm-hmm. Yes. Plus we had indoor activities for people if they wanted to get out of the heat. Sure. So it was still good. However, it made us reassess what we're going to do next year.
Okay.
And next year's going to be quite different. Okay. Next year, we're going to do it in the fall, probably September.
Very nice.
So it will be, it will be cooler. It probably won't be 100 degrees.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. We were also thinking of moving down on the pier in New London, which is just a big platform right on the water. The Mystic Whaler docks right there. And there's a lot more room. Mm-hmm. And also we're thinking of, instead of having Fasting Friday, Social Saturday, Science Sunday, we're thinking of doing everything on all days.
Okay.
So we're going to intersperse talks and podcasts with social activities and food. We're going to do a little bit differently. We're thinking of lowering the price of the ticket.
Okay.
And then people can buy food from the vendors.
Sure.
So if somebody wants pig, the pig roast or whatever, somebody wants pork, they'll pay for that. Somebody wants a burger, they'll pay for that. So, and we're going to let the vendors do the food.
Sure.
And I don't mean, people who are selling products, but, restaurants.
Sure.
Somebody who wants to come and do the people who are going to do the pig are going to sell the pig. People who are going to do the burgers are going to sell the burgers.
Sure, that is one distinction that I like about KetoFest as compared to other conferences. I've been involved with KetoCon the last couple years, and then you've got the low carb conferences as well, which each one has its own little focus to it to a degree. Right. KetoFest is not about vendors or product vendors or that type of thing. One of the taglines that you've used is turning New London keto for the weekend. And I think, so you get local restaurants and you get local food people and whatnot to come and share their goods with with the area. And I really, and the benefit from that, from what I've observed, and you can confirm this, is that those restaurants are realizing, hey, there are ways that we can easily continue to provide this type of option for people who are looking for a more healthy alternative.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really happened. I mean, at RD86, which is sort of the restaurant test kitchen, RD stands for Research and Development. 86 is the address, 86 Golden Street. Rob Ramsey, who's the head chef, the owner of RD86, when I started talking to him about it, he was like, well, I don't cook with sugar or starch anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like they really don't. They, of course, they have potatoes and they have French fries and fish and chips and stuff. But you know, when he's braising meat, for example, he doesn't put cornstarch or flour in the gravy. He thickens it with the vegetables that he cooks it in and butter. You know, he thickens with butter. Like, that's French. It's the French technique. They don't use flour in anything. It makes it taste not good. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he was like, you know, rather than doing, you know, we're going to be a keto restaurant, we're just going to make good food and it's just going to be keto.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to be that way.
Yeah.
And Daddy Jack's that does the pizza. Well, Jack recently has gone ketogenic, and he says he's low carb-ish. He's still having a hard time getting away from potatoes.
Yeah.
And a little pasta once in a while, but he doesn't eat bread and he doesn't eat sugar anymore. And he's actually he has a YouTube channel called Cooking with the Blues, where it's just an iPhone in the kitchen and he's showing how to make stuff. And he let me sit in on a couple of them that he made me, like some pork, like a pork schnitzel with mustard and butter and just some really good food.
Yeah.
And so they're just into it. The restaurants are just like, now they know that they can provide low carb options for their customers. And it's had a great effect on the town.
Awesome. Well, I know our time is wrapping up right now. You've got another podcast to run to in a couple minutes. So any parting shots, and then also where can people connect with you, whether it be online or just in general?
Well, go to 2KetoDudes.com, and that's our podcast. And I just tell people, start listening from episode 1. And here's the important thing. Look at the links that we put in the show notes, because those are, you know, to research, to science. We also have a whole bunch of aliases, 2keto.com. So we have science.2keto.com, which is a blog post highlighting some of the science that we like. We have forum.2keto.com, which goes to the forums. We have blog.2keto.com, which is our blog that has a lot of great recipes. So we have, what else do we have? fb.2keto.com, which is Facebook. We have amazon.2keto.com, which is products we like at Amazon that you can buy there. What else? Oh, the Keto Kitchen is a Facebook group that Carrie started and I joined. And that's sort of where you can talk to us. Also, we have a Patreon account, patreon.2keto.com. And if you pledge $20 or more a month, you get access to an exclusive Facebook group, 2KetoDudes Gold. And it's a smaller, contained community. So, yes, we're back on Facebook, but we're we're doing a little self-selection.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. That's one of the great things about the Keto Man's Club is it's we only take in people who actually know what keto is. And we're not geared for newbies. And then we only take in men. And so we kind of have the ability to kind of pick and choose. And luckily, we've only had to kick out a couple people, and we very rarely have to reject anyone. But yeah, it's good.
So it's really interesting that you have this, men's only thing.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you get some blowback from people, but there are plenty of co-ed communities out there. Why did you, if I can turn the tables on you, why did you decide to do a men's only group? Do you think that there are issues that men have that women don't have? What's the story there?
So the initial idea and I didn't start it myself. Jim, one of our podcast co-hosts, he started it, but his idea was he was largely tired of the Facebook groups that constantly had the beginner questions, and he was looking to create a space for people just to kind of live keto and not necessarily even be so keto focused. Sort of science and questions and everything like that. There was space for that, but not always, the same beginner questions. So that was the one of the primary things. But then he also noticed a gap in the market where in the space where there was lots and lots of co-ed space groups, and there was also a lot of female-only groups, but there weren't a lot of male. And so he's like, well, why not just have a men's-only group for guys that happen to be keto to hang out? And that's what it's really been largely, and we hear a lot of success stories from our members. And
that's cool.
So, yeah, it's been very, very cool to get to do that. And, yeah, we get some questions. Sometimes they're a little bit more beginner, but we have ways to respond to that in the way that we need to, and still get them the answers that they need. Just we sometimes redirect them to other sources to find them. And so it's been really good to have that. But it's just a tribe of men that's 2,700 plus strong at this point that really are doing life together, and we just happen to be keto. And that's really been a really cool thing. And out of that, I have started to develop friendships that are really, truly best friend-like in nature.
Very cool.
It's been really, really cool.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to join the group. If you have, I know that you probably don't have much time to hang out on Facebook, but if you want to join, you are welcome to join the group. We'll make sure that you don't even have to answer the questions.
Sure. Yeah. I'll become a member.
Okay. Very cool.
Who was it that said, I'm leery of any club that would have me as a member? Groucho Marx, maybe?
Maybe. I'm not sure. But it does make sense. Does make sense. Okay, well, Carl, thank you so much for your time this morning. I know you've got to run at this point because you're going straight into a 2KetoDudes recording session. Tell Carrie hi for me.
Okay.
And we will we'll see you around, okay?
All right, thanks, Chris.
Well, gents, that was the interview. What do you think?
He knows his stuff. The one thing that that I really appreciated and liked was, well, I shouldn't say the one thing, but one of the things that stuck out to me was that phrase about metabolically deranged.
Mm-hmm.
And we, again, talked about this before we started the recording. I have never heard that before, but it is a perfect analogy to how so many people are doing in just their way of life, because no matter what they're trying to do, they're trying to find the way that works best for them, and they just keep struggling. They bounce back and forth and everything. So yeah, your body can only take so much before it just kind of goes a little crazy and whatnot. So I really appreciated that part of the conversation that you guys had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned it in our interview with him, but I learned that from his co-host, his previous co-host, Richard, who's just a super intelligent guy. I miss him, but I'm glad to see Carrie on the show too. But Richard is a great guy too, and maybe we'll be able to get him on the podcast too. Alberto, what were some of your impressions from the conversation?
I thought it overall was really good. I mean, like obviously I've heard of the name, and that podcast is on a very long list of podcasts that I mean to listen to. But when it comes to podcasts, like I'm like a kid. I'm like, oh look, new podcast, and then I go that way, and then there I am for 2-3 weeks on end. So that list never gets any shorter. They're definitely on it, and they're creeping their way up. And I have listened to a few episodes. What I thought was pretty cool was even how he was saying everything down to how his musical career and his musical skills even improved down to the inflammation in his fingers, and you were even mentioning it too, like
stamina,
the power of your voice, and like stuff that you would never think of. That obviously, if you do enough, and then you change your diet, you're like, wow, even this is getting better. It just kind of goes to show you that it improves everything once your body and your metabolism are in a thriving state.
It really is. I will not say that I'm God's gift to man when it comes to singing, but I'm pretty solid. But one of the things that, when I was metabolically having issues, I would end up having to force myself to warm up a whole lot more. And then I have nights like tonight. I had to run to church real quick and help out with youth worship at church before I came home to record with you guys, and it was me on the keys, and our worship leader's like, hey, I need you on some backup vocals. Let's get him a mic. And yes, I'd sang a little bit in the car on the way home just to kind of refresh myself on the songs and whatnot. But it was just one of those things that I had it. It was there. And so, yeah, it's just crazy that the change that our bodies go through as we heal and all of that.
Well, I have a little bit of that musical ability as well, and I appreciate what he was saying about just that. I guess it's one of those things that when you talk about keto, you talk about the way of eating, you think, okay, I'm here to lose weight in some way, or I'm going to do this for, the overall health. Well, overall health can drill down to whether or not you sound froggy when you're clearing your throat all the time, or you have, a clean pathway that you can take a deep breath and just, rock the rafters. So all of these things tie in, just kind of like we were talking about before the interview with the kid who's eating Pringles and French fries or whatever all that stuff is. And yeah, you don't think those things connect. Hey, they all do, man. They all do.
Yeah, they really do. So this week was a really great interview, great conversation, kind of like meeting one of my mentors that never knew that he was a mentor. So that was a really incredible time for me. And he was very gracious with his time and his experience with us. So I'm thankful that he shared his story with us. Let's review real quickly how people can connect with us. Like we mentioned before, you can get our our Facebook group, our podcast. You can get to all of our socials by going to theketomansclub.com. And so you'll be able to get access to all of that easily enough that way. We can review those real quickly. I am at Duckman Keto on Instagram. Jim?
My Instagram is Jim Inman Jr., Jim Inman Jr.
Okay, and Alberto?
I am the Keto Cholo for all my keto stuff, and capital_painter for all of my automotive painting shenanigans.
Yes.
And poor capital_painter has had a rough week with a demo trailer that has a short built in that pretty much blew everything up inside of that trailer, electric-wise, while I was setting up to do a demo at a shop. So yeah, it's been fun.
I'm hoping no permanent damage was done. That sounds not so great.
Well, the computer still works, but everything else it might be shot.
Yeah. That sounds like an
fun stuff.
expensive electrical short. And you can connect with our podcast at Keto Man's Club Podcast. And if you have a comment or a question, say you have interest in being on the show or inquiries about the show in general, you can email us at ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com. We really do appreciate you listening and tuning in. It means a lot to us that you take the time. Any parting shots, gents, before I give our outro?
I want to do a quick reminder. We've talked about how our group has grown since it started back in April 2017, and the group we do have some beginners in there, but it is for guys who are a little bit more advanced on the keto way of eating and whatnot. With that, we have a couple of security questions that we ask people to do just to make sure that they are already familiar with this way of eating and are not coming in with the idea of, I want to know about keto, where do I begin? Well, that's kind of up to you. Once you've kind of gone through that 101 information and you've done a little bit of work on your own end, we would love to have you join us. We're growing every day. It's not meant to be discouraging at all. We just want you to have, and the security questions, let me tell you, are very basic. So it just tells us, hey, you do know what this is, kind of thing. So if you do want to join us, we would love to have you. You can find us, as Chris shared, on Facebook and through the KetoMansClub.com. Just make sure that you know what your macros are and that you've been doing this for a little bit. And that's all we really need to know. And then you're into the coolest group on Facebook that might just have awards for 2019. But we'll talk about that at a later time.
Nice.
Alberto, any parting shots?
Is there an award for least amount of shirts worn?
You've already won it.
I'm asking for a friend.
I don't know that we can give that to the person who it's going to be named for. The Alberto Free Keto Nipple Award of the Year goes to...
I'm okay with this.
I'm okay with just having images of what the logo is going to be and how this award is shaped, and I'm just thinking, oh, this is not safe for work anymore.
It's just going to be a big pepperoni
with a pencil eraser right in the middle. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's how it goes, gents. That's how it goes.
Oh, and I'm not going to edit any of this out.
No. This is exactly who we are. We had somebody that commented about how they loved our interaction with one another. Well, here's what you get, boys and girls.
Yeah. We knew we hit it off really, really quickly, really, really well, but I'm not sure we realized how well that was. Okay, well, I think that's it for this week. Until next week, make sure to eat meat, lift heavy, sleep, and repeat. Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Would you help us spread the word about the Keto Man's Club by sharing with your friends and family? We're available on all podcast platforms, so just search for Keto Man's Club and you'll find us. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. Our web address leads to our Facebook group, theketomansclub.com. That's TheKetoMansClub.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out via email to KetoMansClubPodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.